What's the most horrifying, disturbing thing you've come across at someone else's house? For me, it was my friend's computer room wall. I had some good friends, geeks, who lived in the bad part of town. Their apartment was fully infested with roaches, but they had forged a sort of Joe's apartment relationship with them. They loved to paint miniatures, and when a roach got too close, they'd go blap and smack him with a paintbrush. So they had all these Braveheart roaches running around with bodies half colored in bright paint. Anyways, they're playing this long drawn out game one day. I don't remember what it was, but think Risk, with one of my friends who is just this endless hard luck case. Great guy, great attitude, but life finds him and shoots on him whenever it can. After hours of play, he wins, and exultantly jumps up and cheers. The only problem is that he leaps out of his chair like Super Mario, fist bumps a styrofoam ceiling tile, dislodging it and causing a rain of multicolored roaches to come cascading onto him. I hear he just stood there and screamed for a while. I was about 12, my neighbor about 15, and his little brother was about 9. The said neighbor and I are sitting in his room playing the original Medal of Honor back in the late 1990s. His little brother came running in waving a big floppy purple corncob that he found in his mom's room. His older brother then grabs it from him, slaps him in the face with it, and tells him to put it back. I never laughed so hard in my life. I find this story oddly refreshing compared to others here, more humorous than disgusting, to be honest. A friend of mine is a house appraiser in New Jersey. He walks into the living room of one particular client's house and there is a glass coffin in the living room with the body of a woman preserved inside. Ayla Lennon. The guy says it's his mother. My friend said it was the fastest he ever appraised a house in his entire career. Drunken one night stand. Midway through lights get turned on and bam. Huge Nazi flag over the bed. Doesn't matter, had fricked. While in college, I visited another friend's apartment. It was summertime in Maine, a wet summer with much rain. The basement was warm and dark. I had to go downstairs to find a hammer or something, and when I clicked on the light, the entire rug, small area rug at the bottom of the stairs, which apparently collected moisture runoff from the basement stairs walls seeping water, was completely covered with mushrooms fungus at least 5 inches high. Therefore, if I stepped on the rug, my feet would have sunk about 5 inches into mushrooms. What was the creepiest thing about it was that the mushrooms would lean towards you when you got close, and would shoot spores into the air when the warm air brushed by them. So, it was as if they were watching you. They could sense you close, and trying to spore you if you disturbed the air enough. I had never seen mushrooms react to warmth, or something close, let alone try to fire spores into the air to get you. I was equally fascinated, terrified that I might get spores all through my lungs or whatnot, so I bolted. Trust the fungus. Finding my ex's sister's giant black backdoor beds in the room with said ex-sister and her boyfriend. Being a bit younger, I picked them up, like, what the heck are these? Then I realized and put them down quickly. Everyone had seen this. You can only wash away the poo, never the shame. Not my sister's backdoor beds, my ex-GF's sister. At first I read it as your ex-sister. Sorry sis, after finding your anal beads we are through. A university friend of mine lived with some FBFs. They used to let their dog crap all over the place, and eat all over the place. They would just pour leftover drinks and food on the floor, and dog would walk around the house dragging its tongue on the ground, surely also licking up its own feces at the time. A tile was missing in their shower, so water leaked into the wall, and on the other side of the wall was a bedroom with a damp corner where mushrooms grew. Their coffee table was a sheet of plywood on posts, and they had coasters that were drawn on with a Jiffy marker. One of them ate nothing but pizza for 3 years and came down with scurvy. I was at this guy's house. He was pretty weird to begin with, but we had been friends for so long I didn't seem to notice anymore. Until this one day, I'm in his room watching TV with him. His walls are covered in pictures of old movie stars from the 20s 40s. I was sitting on his floor when I feel something scratching my leg a bit. I look down and it's a toenail clipping. Whatever, I think. He probably forgot to throw it away. Nope. Once I saw the first toenail clipping, I couldn't stop seeing them. Literally, there were hundreds of toenail clippings all over the floor. He saw me looking at the floor, somewhat horrified. He chuckled and called them his friends. Vacuuming would be so satisfying. When I was a kid and the NES came out, there was this poor kid at school that was rejected by everyone. His name was Patrick. There was horrible stories about his parents. Small town. His father was called Big Joe and I remember seeing him peeing in the middle of the mall's parking lot on a hot summer day, in front of everybody. They were a very, very dirty family. So one day, Patrick told me his uncle, a wealthy man, sent him a NES for his birthday and that he would love if someone came to play with him. I was reluctant at first, because I wasn't sure my parents would approve, but I went anyways because I felt bad for him being rejected and alone. So we go at his place, and as soon as we open the door, there is the worst smell I have ever encountered in my whole life. It was like a wall. You could actually feel it on your skin, I think. Just writing these words makes me gag. I was trying to breathe from the mouth, but I was tasting it. I had never seen anything like it. There was dirty dishes, cigarettes butts and dog crap all over the place. There was a sofa in the kitchen with a small TV to which the NES was hooked up. His mother was playing it and didn't even notice we were there. There was empty bottles of soda and bags of chips all around her. Patrick asked her if she played Mario all night and all day without sleeping, but he had a hard time getting her attention. After a couple of tries, she finally noticed we were there and said, "Oh, sorry, you brought a friend to play Mario? I'll let you play. That game is so much fun I crap my pants." At first I thought she was joking, but when she stood up, it was obvious that the woman literally crap her pants and pee all over the couch. Her pants and the couch were all wet and there was crap stains in her butt. And the smell. I went to what seemed like a sink covered with dirty dishes and puked in a bowl containing an unknown substance in a late stage of putrefaction. I told Patrick that I had to leave and ran out the door. I never told my parents about this story because I feared their reaction, but I should tell them next time I see them. Kind of feel bad for Patrick. Not his fault his parents are fricked up. When I was a teenager, I had a hard time finding anyone who I could play Dungeons and Dragons with. I eventually discovered that there was a gaming club at a library over on the seedy part of town. So I rode my bike over every Saturday morning and joined in whatever was being played. Eventually, I met some guys in their late 20s who wanted to start up a D&D game. It turned out that they were basically a bunch of welfare bums. But I didn't care because I was getting my game on finally. I went over to their nasty houses and played D&D with them. Fortunately the DM had a job and a family, and we usually played in his finished basement. But sometimes we would play at the other houses. One of the players was also in the Amiga club, and he always had new games that I didn't have. So I would go over to his place with blank floppies and come back with a bunch of DIY pirated stuff. But his place was the worst. Basement bachelor unit in a seedy building. It smelled like mold everywhere but his room, which smelled of dirty laundry and used tissues. He had a massive pre-internet P collection, and I would usually leaf through them while I was waiting for the discs to copy. It was kind of disgusting, but hey, when you're pre-internet teenager, getting access to unlimited P will make you put up with a lot. So one day I was there with my best friend, who I had gotten into the D&D game a few weeks earlier. He and I were sitting on this dude's bed when he gets up to go to the washroom down the hall. I will never know what possessed my buddy to do it, but he reached over and pulled open the guy's dresser drawer. It was full of clipped out magazine pictures. It took us a few seconds, but we realized that they were all clippings from the Sears catalog, cut from the children's underwear section. Thousands of pictures of kids, boys and girls, in crisp white cotton. We closed the drawer and never spoke of it again. TLDR. In the dresser of the grossest bachelor frog I've ever met, we found cutout pictures of kids in their underwear. You met 4chan that day. This was not my experience, but my aunt's. It was back in the 50s when my aunt was a teenager. She was hired by a couple to babysit. She'd never babysat for this couple before, but she was impressed because they were fairly wealthy and lived in a big house. The two small children, around 5 and 6 years old, were well dressed and well behaved. My aunt spent the day with them, fed them, played with them, etc. That evening she got them ready for bed. The parents were due back later that night. My aunt heard some sounds coming from an upstairs closet. The children were in bed asleep. She opened the closet and found a crib, and in the crib was a baby. Both the crib and the baby were filthy. I think my aunt woke up the children and asked them about the baby, but their answers were vague. I don't recall my aunt having any luck getting information about the baby from the two older children. My aunt cleaned the baby up. She washed the bedding. I remember her telling me that the baby didn't really make much sound, other than the little grunts that had drawn her attention to it in the closet. She probably tried to feed the baby, but I don't remember that part of the story. According to my aunt, the parents came home, paid her, thanked her, took the baby, and the dad drove her home. She never babysat for them again, and she has no idea what happened to the baby. I remember when she told me this story, she said that as an adult she realized that she should have called the police. She was really upset that she hadn't thought, as a naive teenager, to do something to help what was obviously an abused child. That is truly horrifying. One of my mom's friends has a house that isn't as horrible as some things mentioned, but it's pretty awful. They have a little dog who they have never given any training, so the dog pees and shoots everywhere. I remember when they first moved in there was a white carpet. It's nowhere near white anymore. The whole house smells like trash and poop because they use giant trash cans, so they have to take the trash out less, and then stack the bags in the corner of the kitchen, like 5 or 6 bags at a time. Stains all over the rug from the dog, and they got a crack in the foundation, so when it rained mud came up into the carpet. Upstairs was worse. The kids had pretty much run off the upstairs. Nothing was ever cleaned. There was dog poop dried all over the floor, some smeared across it. The cats peed on everything too. They had a landing area where there was a pool table and some games. Even the pool table smelled like pee. The daughter's room had clothes and empty soda cans everywhere, movies on the floor, necklaces hanging from things. Basically she never put away anything. I found a half-eaten pizza under her bed once that was growing something. Her bathroom had dirty towel everywhere and makeup smeared across the walls, and the tub hadn't been cleaned in ages. But the boy's room, oh god. He kept his door closed all them time because just opening the door made you feel like you were going to die. So many towels and clothes you couldn't see the floor. Chips bags and pizza boxes everywhere. The boy is 15 now, but he is essentially a child. He couldn't wipe his own butt. No joking here. Absolutely serious. Until he was 9. He still isn't good at it by the smell in his room and the fact that there are stains all over boxes and towels and his bed. Just wanted to add that he has no mental issues. He is fully mentally capable and is actually very smart. Just an absolute child. Not me, but a friend of mine. He was in an acquaintance's house to pick up something for work and stayed a bit to shoot the crap. They go down to the basement, which I guess like a games room. But in the corner is this huge shrine in honor of this girl that they both knew. It was this altar covered in pictures, dolls with her face, freaking hair even. The dude was kind of embarrassed about it, but in the way that you'd be a little embarrassed if you forgot to put away the lube, where you just laugh it off. He explained it to my friend, who left. Everyone at work found out about it, including the girl, but from what he told me the guy never really understood just how fricked up that was. They're married now. Not really. A married couple I know used to be stalker and stalky. True story. When I was younger, my parents decided to build a new house. However, the buyer for the old one needed the house before the new one was done building, so we rented a house in the meantime. One day, while sitting on the toilet in the basement, I saw one of those flat crawling grey bugs that tend to appear when there's high humidity. No idea what you call them. I squished it, but saw another one that was crawling out of a small hole in the wall. I extended my leg, still on the toilet, crapping, and pressed right above the hole. The wall felt mushy from the humidity, like damp cardboard. I pushed again with my toe when suddenly, dozens and dozens of those bugs crawled out of the hole and other similar holes in the wall. I was on the toilet, crapping. At that moment, running away was not an option. They could very well be silverfish. Thinking back to how killing one led to a bunch coming out of nowhere, I now understand the behavior of the silverfish mob in Minecraft. Worst glory hole ever. I had a friend in grade school whose parents were borderline hoarders. Not bad enough to go on the show, but it was difficult to get around the house. Well, turns out that while it was difficult for people to get around, it was like a centipede amusement park. They were everywhere. They're big ones that looked like they got hit by a stray dose of radiation. I would spend the night and I swear I could hear them scuttling across the floor. My uncle was a hoarder, but instead of rotting food he collected lots of antiques and just bought stuff at the dollar store or Kmart and left it around his house. When he died, we had to clean out all this stuff. We found Polaroids of stuff, mostly his beloved cats. One featured a little shrine with candles and flowers around a wood casket with his beloved cat Scooter, who lived to be 21 years old. So when we found a similar box in the barn I told my dad not to open it. Acquaintance of mine and his wife had moved into a newly built townhouse, rented, with 2 large dogs, labs. They'd been living there for a few months and I went in to sell him some computer stuff. There was dog crap and fur everywhere, lots of dried full-sized piles, some stamped down and stained into the living room carpet, which I don't think they used at all. They were both computer junkies so they spent all their time in their computer room upstairs. Going up the stairs, enough shedded fur to make at least 3 or 4 more dogs. Noticed some crap upstairs on the landing but their computer room was mostly clean. They didn't have much in the house as far as furniture or anything at all really. It's not like they were hoarders, just lazy and nasty. I just don't get how people can get to a point in their life where they think yeah no, I'm totally a-okay with just leaving this dog crap here on the floor. I dated a girl in high school who was bulimic, though I didn't know it at the time. We were outside one night at her place and she was cold and asked me to go grab her a sweatshirt from her closet, which I did. There was dozens of jars of vomit on the floor of her closet. I've never seen your after school specials, but common sense would say if they made an after school special about it perhaps it was common. They hide it in jars no one knows they are running to the bathroom to puke after eating all the time. As a father of 4 girls, believe me, you watch for crap like that. I talked to her about it. She was ashamed but didn't lie. She had a ton of issues beyond that, and we weren't together very long anyway. I was called to the home of a mentally ill person, where I saw he had saved every urine stream and bowel movement he had made for probably the last year. Hundreds upon hundreds of jars, stacked up on shelves, and he was running out of room. Talk about the worst place to be during an earthquake. I was house sitting for a woman I worked for and found a naked picture of her boyfriend with a boner. They are 60. It was just out in the open. This isn't so bad, but the friend whose house I'm staying at has a Rivet's yellow lettered mellow policy in her bathrooms and her kids can't seem to remember the second part of the rhyme. If it's brown, flush it down. I've seen and smelt terrible things. They won't be eating any Taco Bell when I'm in town, I tell you what. Back in 1990-91 when I was 10 or 11, I was at a kid's slumber party. About 2 years earlier a serial killer had been caught and sent to prison in our area and this kid's parents moved in from out of town into his old house. I'm not sure if they knew ahead of time but if they did, I'm sure they got a great deal on it, maybe the reason they bought it. Anyway, this house was outside of town in the country surrounded by cornfields and was a nice house, but creepy as frick. That night this kid took us upstairs to the attic to show us something he had found the day before when he was exploring the house. He hadn't told his parents about it for some reason. We all got up there and he lifted a loose piece of plywood and put a large piece of construction paper that had photos of people out in public glued to it. It was obvious that most of them had no idea that they were being photographed, except for one that was a blurred shot of a guy up close who looked scared as frick. Also scattered around among the photos were weird but handwritten poems that at the time didn't seem to make any sense to me. Needless to say it creeped the frick out of most of us. Afterwards, this kid decided we should watch the movie Children of the Corn. Combining those two things together pretty much ruled out any sleeping for me that night. He slept like a log. Freaking friend of yours was being possessed by the house. Or maybe I watched too many horror movies. We went to this guy's house from my high school to work on an extra credit movie, James Bond, but about ionic bonding. Ionic bond. We were checking out the scenes we had filmed by uploading the data to his computer. So the video is playing and it gets to the end of the final scene we shot, when suddenly it cuts to a video of what was obviously the guy's dong. We only saw a split second, but I'm pretty sure he was cooming or something. Anyway, we all jerked back in terror. We were in 9th grade, and the guy stammers, "UHH my stupid brother," and runs out of his room and beats the crap out of his 5-year-old brother. Ha ha ha, oh my god, that kid was an idiot. Stupid little brother, always filming me masturbating. I had a friend who owned 3 dogs. They were crap inside the house and she wouldn't clean it up for weeks. Their floor was like a hideous, stinky minefield. They also had a large compost heap in their back room and a hole in their floorboards where they would toss rubbish. This is the kind of crap you call animal cruelty for. Dunno if you can call anyone about the compost trash hole. A friend of my mom's was having computer trouble, so I got recruited into going over to fix it up. I ended up driving out to the middle of nowhere and met with her to be led further into the nothing. Finally getting there, the house looked a bit beat up on the outside but looked fine. As soon as I step in, it was like getting hit by a Mack truck of horrible. The place was littered with trash. Everything was everywhere. Pill bottles were stacked up next to a nasty looking recliner. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think there was poop on the floor. I'm a nice guy, though. Sorta. So I told her, nice place. She smiled and led me back to her computer room, which was worse. There were trash bags full of Miss Garbage. And not in the sense that there were heaps of garbage. It was literally trash bags stacked up in a fort-like manner and she was walking on them. I felt so sick, almost at the point of passing out. She started talking about what was wrong with the computer, but all I could focus on was the best way to delouse myself when I left. I told her the HDD was busted and told her to get a new one from CompuServe, then made a beeline to the door. I never told my mom how terrible this person's place was. To each his own, but that was the worst place I've ever been on. I had fleas when I left. TLDR. Person's home is filled with trash bags of garbage and doesn't seem to care notice. The thing that immediately came to mind for me was when I used to be friends with this girl when I was in elementary school, and when I went to her house for the first time, her dad had a dog skin drug. Yep, apparently he wanted to cherish his deceased companion in the most morbid way ever. I need to get some chihuahuas and get some placemats made. When my wife and I were house shopping, the house we ended up buying was a piece of work. The people who lived there were hoarders. They had cleaned up and sold almost everything just before we came to look at the house, which ended up meaning there was a path a foot wide down the length of the hall. Huge piles of boxes on both sides. They ran some kind of edible underwear sales business out of one room, and the inventory overflowed into their bedroom, and had a teenage son with a room that couldn't be entered. Also, they didn't leave when we got there, spoke loudly in German and heavily accented English, walked around with some pretty nasty, unclean bare feet and stayed uncomfortable close to us. Like the man of the house followed me into the half bath when I was looking at it. All of that said, the house was where we wanted it in the size we wanted, and with the allowances and low price we paid, we completely refurbished the entire house. Also, we came back again later, with the specific request to view the house without the homeowners present. Apparently you have to spell it out for some people. Ran some kind of edible underwear sales business out of one room. Truly the American dream. Not at home, but disturbing still. Guy I was in same school with had photos of girls above his desk. He gave the impression he had a relationship with them. This guy was a socially desperate kind of guy. Frustrated, passive aggressive, whining about people not wanting to be friends. Talking about how much he likes big boobs and asses and trying to be the funny little weird guy from some TV show. All good reason to not want to be more than acquaintances. Anyway, the pictures of girls. He'd gone over their faces with pen and anger. Very much anger. To the point of the photo paper being torn. But still having the photos stuck on his wall. You could almost tell when people had seen them, changing their attitudes toward him. He's a future SVU story waiting to happen. I got to know this one dude in junior high through a mutual friend, and he seemed like a pretty cool guy. So, I went to his house a couple of times to play video games, ride bikes, etc. I met his parents who seemed kind of different. I couldn't put my finger on it until we were playing games one day, and his dad stepped in front of the TV and said, "Well, this is weekly family P night. We always let one of the kids pick out a video from the store and we watch it together. Wanna stay longer?" Even though I was a young boy, that was just too much for me. The thought of him, his sister, and parents all watching P together freaked me out. I didn't stay. I really hope this was just his way of getting you to leave. Guy in my college dorms had lots of carpet stains and crunchy spots. He explained to everyone, like it was perfectly normal, that he just came on the floor and carpeted it. Carpeting meant that he just rubbed it into the carpet with his foot. After telling the group this, he realized that it was not as common a practice as he once thought. We moved to a different room. Spent a week with my aunt and uncle once when my parents were out of town. I was probably 12. He has an awesome basement den type area. Pool table, TV, bar. I'm looking for the bathroom down there. Turn on a light switch in a side room. There's a round bed, whips on the walls, and a bondage swing hanging in the middle. Pretty freaky crap to see when you're 12, but at least now you know your aunt and uncle had a very healthy private life. My roommate was a fan of pizza and Coca-Cola. That is all that he consumed. That and SpaghettiOs. I came back from a break to find 2 stacks of pizza boxes and copious amounts of Coke bottles next to his bed. Now this was not out of the ordinary, but there were about 30 boxes next to his bed, of which he was going through them looking for leftover pieces of pizza to consume. I can't help but think that he must take some of the wickedest juices ever. Come to think of it, we did call him Stinky. I wouldn't be surprised if he bit the dust because of a diet like that. Not someone else's house. My then house. There was a first floor bathroom that was just tiny. There was hardly any room for the sink and toilet. It was like a dollhouse bathroom. There was definitely no room for a trash can. We lived there for 3 years. When we were packing up to move, I was emptying out the little cupboard under the sink when, in the very back, I found a landfill of used tampons. Some were wrapped in toilet paper, most weren't. Horrifying. Nightmare fodder. Infinite tampons. When you don't give lady visitors a place to throw that crap away, I guess they get inventive. I still have no idea if this was the work of one person or many. The smell, when I broke the mountain of tampons apart, so upsetting. Friend of mine had this super creepy cousin that we always claimed was going to be on the news for an office rampage or something along those lines. Anyway, he got arrested for trying to molest a neighbor kid, and while we were helping my friend's aunt move his stuff out, I found his computer chair. He had stabbed a screwdriver through the middle and would apparently sit on it while playing games. Anyway, next to the chair was this lamp that was just a horrendous shade of green. That lamp sounds awful. Across the street from my parents' house, there used to be this old crazy lady that lived there for as long as I have been alive. When I lived there, my parents told me not to talk to her as she was clinically insane. Well, anyway, one day, she killed herself by hanging herself in her garage. The rope was tied to beams up in an attic above the garage, and apparently she killed herself by climbing up into the attic, attaching the rope, and then jumping. Apparently a caregiver stopped by, saw her hanging, undid the rope, and called the cops. My dad was home at the time and saw the emergency personnel inside the garage. For some weird reason, he even took a few pictures of the scene. Well, anyway, the house remained empty for another year until this family from Mexico moved in. The parents had just become citizens and this was their starter home. After a few weeks, I saw them attempting to put up a tire swing on the tree in their front yard. I went over to help, and as we were talking, the father noted that apparently nobody ever cleaned out the garage attic before they moved in. He said he found a bunch of old garden tools, random junk, an old set of 4 tires, and this long rope attached to the beams right over the attic door. He kept the tools, threw out the junk, and decided a tire swing would be a fun thing to have for his kids. I froze as the huge knot began to form in my stomach. I quickly ended the conversation and went back home. There was no way that they left the rope attached to the beams, right? Well, I found my dad's pictures of that day, and luckily you could see the rope in one of the pictures. Same freaking rope. Old, thick, fraying, and painted green on some parts but mostly tan. The father obviously didn't know what happened to the previous tenant, and I could never tell him. From that day on, I always shuddered when I saw those kids swinging from the same dang rope that the crazy old lady hung herself from. This can't be real, too epic. Regardless, this is now a campfire story for me to tell. Ever seen a stuffed hamster? A couple of friends and I stop at this guy's house before a night out. He's got 3. When I was younger, I went over this guy's house to buy his lawnmower. He kept it in the basement as, living in a bad neighborhood, it would get stolen outside. The minute I went inside, I noticed something was off. The front room, the door opened up and wasn't used at all, ever. He brought me into the second room. Holy heck, on a mountain top. The trash was piled so high I could barely see the walls. Some trash bags contained nothing but food. There was food in there I hadn't seen since I was a kid. In the corner was a couch with a baby on it. This guy is single, he doesn't have kids. I hear people. Apparently he'd been living with a large portion of his entire family. Mother, aunt, uncle, cousin, sister, etc. I decide, let's go ASAP. I go down to his basement. Crap, literally, crap. They kept all their dozen or so animals down here and never cleaned. There was crap everywhere. Agile as I was, I couldn't avoid stepping in something. He walked over it, barefoot, and didn't seem to care or notice. He got my lawnmower, and I paid him. He opened up a ramp onto the backyard, and I brought it out. I put it in a mutual friend's truck. He decided to stay in the truck, lucky guy, and drove off. I'm sorry, lawnmower guy, but that crap's not right. I don't feel bad for completely ignoring your existence from then on. I went to a friend's house to help him move out of his apartment during his divorce. I knew he and his soon-to-be ex-wife had cats, but never knew the extent of it. When I arrived, the smell was the first thing to hit me, then the filth. There was cat urine and cat crap everywhere. I wanted to get out of that house as fast as possible. There were cats in the furniture, under the coffee table, in the cabinets, in the walls, like a horror movie. What got me though was seeing cat crap on their infant daughter's high chair. I was horrified. Went out with a buddy who introduced me to his friend who is a girl. We were drinking fairly heavily and she suggested that we all go back to her place. My buddy and I went to the liquor store and grabbed some beer and then headed over to the address she gave us in the middle of crap town San Fernando Valley. Okay, my buddy and I are both hammered, but me less so, and I think I am going to get lucky with this girl if my buddy doesn't C-block me. We get to her place, and I go to put the beer in the refrigerator, and when I open it I see a foot-long corn cob covered in cat litter and cat hair sitting on one of the shelves of the fridge all by itself. Most men would run, but I wasn't daunted. I thought I was going to get laid. I used a 6-pack to move over the corn cob and grabbed beers out and closed the door. At this point, we all go into the bedroom and are sitting on the bed. I have to take a pee and go into the bathroom and close the door. Upon closing the door, I see the cat litter box in front of the toilet is filled 4 inches high with cat crap and the entire bathroom floor is covered in kicked out kitty litter. In the corner is a trash can that has overflowed with used tissue to the point that it looks like a toilet paper pyramid. Still, undaunted, because I think I am going to get laid. Finally, what did it for me was when I walked back out into the room and the girl had grabbed a corn cob out of the fridge and was sucking on the tip. And it was still dirty and covered in cat hair and kitty litter. I wished them both a good night and left. TLDR. Corn cob covered in cat hair litter being sucked on. Once I was looking for aspirin at a friend's house, and instead I found her grandmother's butt plug. During my friend's graduation party I noticed what looked like an old ticket framed on the wall. I strolled up to find it was not a ticket, but a receipt. A receipt for the ownership of another human being. My friend's ancestors were slave owners, and horrifyingly proud of it. I used to hang out with this one dude all the time when I was 15-16 years old. He happened to be gay. Anyway, we're chilling in his room one day and he's like, "Wanna see something?" He pulls a butthole version of the fleshlight and tells me all about it. He even takes it out of the canister so I can see how he cleans his CM out of it. I was a pervert already but never saw this kind of thing before and was freaked out because he was showing me his weird masturbation tool. This was long before fleshlights became pretty norm. We had a weird relationship anyway. I totally spent the night over there all the time and would masturbate on his bed occasionally while taking dirty on phone with my boyfriend. Oh wow. My best friend and I knew this guy who wanted to start an underground newspaper and wanted us to write for it. He also wanted to start a pirate radio station, had bought an antenna kit and asked me to assemble it. I went to visit him to pick up the kit. He lived in the basement of his mother's apartment. When I arrived, his mother opened the door and the most overpowering, penetrating stink washed over me. The stink was almost viscous and it felt like it was clogging my pores. I tried breathing through my mouth, but I could taste it. I gutted it out and entered the apartment. There was little light because the every available space was crammed full of stuff. I don't know what the stuff was because there was too little light in the place, and I had to go into the basement. Whatever you're picturing in your mind's eye right now does not even come close to the horror. I've done deliveries for a pharmacy. I took medicine to people who were so sick disabled that some of them hadn't left the house bed in years. Whatever it was, I've seen it. Mine wasn't at home, but is in the same spirit. My wife and I were at Walmart buying some groceries. As we were standing in checkout, this horrible smell, kind of like BO, but you could was from the nether regions, starts to build up. At first, I think it's me and I'm doing sniff checks. I think I might have stepped in something or whatever and I'm only noticing because I'm standing still. As we move closer to the checkout counter, the smell builds up more and we finally realize it's coming from the middle-aged women behind the counter. Obviously, we just wanted to get the heck out of there as fast as possible. So we get checked out and we're happy to finally be leaving. But as we're walking to the car we realize the smell isn't going away. We smell the bags and every bag the woman touched now had her scent. So we get home, throw out all of the bags, and then find that some groceries were also casualties and either had to throw out the packaging it came in or throw it out completely. Whatever was left we washed like crazy and then even we had to shower because our clothes skin had a hint of it too. Looking back, I should have gone to management and complained or asked for free crap. I was a poor student at the time, but didn't want to risk running into her again. TLDR. I met the Johnny Appleseed of Nasty Sea as she fulfilled her quest to fertilize the land with the smell of her decaying snatch. This TLDR made it worth scrolling this far down the thread. An ex of mine used to keep cups of black spit after he used dip in his room. Lots of cups BC he was too lazy to go take it to the kitchen and wash it. He apparently once peed in a bottle in his room that sat there for a while BC he was too lazy to go to the bathroom. He had a comforter that he hadn't washed since he bought it, over a year, that was no longer white, but tinged yellow, so disgusting, and he wondered why I never wanted to stay at his house, ever. A girl down the hall from my friend in college, this was an all-girls dorm, was incredibly shy. They check rooms when people leave for extended breaks, like Thanksgiving and Christmas. This girl had over 30 Aquafina bottles of pee in her room from when she was feeling too shy to leave and go to the bathroom. Was helping a buddy's girlfriend move while he was out of town. We get all the boxes loaded up into the truck then start with furniture. Finally we get to the bedroom and while she's out taking something to the truck, I start pulling drawers from the dresser to make it easier to carry. Started from the bottom and made the way up putting them on the floor. I get to the top drawer and start pulling it out and as soon as I get it out she walks in and her eyes got huge and her face immediately turned bright red. I look down and see a drawer full of adult toys, beads, celebs, various sized corn cobs, butt plugs, whips, ball gags and random other stuff. I looked up and just started laughing. A few minutes later and the rest of the day we were making jokes about it. After about a 12 pk of beer, later we started discussing it while still moving. You actually like this in your butt? Do certain ones do different things? Is he into this or is this just for when you're alone? Was a really funny and educational day. I'll still crack a joke at them now about it even though they have been married for 3 years now. This is the goodest flyboy. He will bring you 10 years of happiness in exchange for a like on this video. Like and subscribe you magnificent person.